Welcome to our week on community vision and also broadband provider interviews. So it's an odd combination of topics, but both very timely for the program. And I'm going to share my screen here and make sure I get the right one up. There we go. And this vision thing, a lot of times I wouldn't consider myself a big vision person. Are you seeing my right slides or are you seeing the preview?
We got it.
Okay, good, thanks. So, but I've seen through this program really the power of creating this vision and I'll say recognizing the choices that folks are making as a part of making that vision statement. We often see this process as dynamic, that the vision statement will change through the program. And here's why I think this is important. It's really to inform your technology and network design choices when you set certain standards for how good your broadband should be. That drives technology choices. Sometimes the reality of finance makes you need to revisit that. Decide which partners are the best fit, who are really a part of that, will be a big part of that, fulfilling that community vision. To inspire the constituency of champions, including your team, but beyond that, to say, let's get people on board with this idea. You're really letting people know what you're pursuing. To sustain that action and progress over time, and then to be accountable to yourselves and to the community. So when we start, and maybe this morning we'll see a few of these, this kind of generic vision statement, things like world-class, a speed goal within there, that it's a competitive marketplace. Certainly reliability is important, affordability, whether it's a combination of wired and wireless providers by a variety of community-centric providers. And, that's a great place to start. But each word in a vision statement needs to have some clear meaning, and that each word represents a choice that will have implications later in the planning process. And so that's why we see sometimes people say, well, maybe we can't get gigabit, and maybe what we need is gigabit in some places and adequate broadband other places. And that's really choices that your community will make. We don't force you on those or say, well, that's not good enough. These are really choices that your community makes. And as you gain more information and understand the entire picture more clearly, maybe you'll say, oh, we do need, it may start with, okay, we need good enough broadband. You'll say, no, at the end of the process, we want to have the gigabit service. And so this is really going to be a big part of your community discussions, really over and over and over through the planning process as you learn more about fiber or wireless technologies, or you have your provider interviews, that will really come to play. And so I want to encourage you to take the time to have this discussion. I think it will really help your team form a strong consensus about what's right for your community. And then again, be able to adapt your vision as necessary. And so with that, I'm going to stop presenting and end my show here. And then I'm going to welcome our guests. And Marla Ackridge is a community economic developer in, I need to get my teams back up here where I can see everyone, in Tuscarawas County in Ohio. And they had a very strong group there working on broadband along with the Ohio Broadband Office and Ohio State Extension, and really a good group that I think worked very hard to make progress. And I'm really excited I invited Marla based on her enthusiasm and the work they did through the process. I'm excited to hear more about what's happened since. And then we'll go then to Britt Talent, and Britt is the publisher of newspaper in Cleveland County, Arkansas, and they completed the program and really had an interesting situation of working with a provider already in place, but kind of a new owner of that existing provider. And so they had their work cut out to kind of get their ducks in a row there. And so, Marla, do you want me to show your slides or? Okay.
Yeah, yes, please. Thanks, Bill.
Okay. And
For the folks that while he's pulling that up, the geography of our county is very similar to some of your counties. I used to work in Jackson, Tennessee, and then in Dyersburg, but the northern part of Tennessee, I know those counties because I asked Bill earlier this week what counties was represented. So I was like, oh yeah, I've been through there. Tuscarawas County is the southern part of our county is the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So we have a challenging issue with topography regarding broadband and any of our infrastructure. So I want to start with take advantage of this program and don't stop at the end of it and keep your committee alive and well. I'll shamelessly tell you behind the scenes, I guilt our bunch into meeting quarterly. And I guilt our bunch into really looking at documents pretty much twice a month. And we have 23 people on our committee for broadband, and it's representative our school system, our higher ed, our businesses, our providers, and Bill said earlier, and this is one thing that has happened since we went through the program. We didn't have a really strong relationship with one of our providers, but now we do because we have the vision, we have our short-term goals and our long-term goals through the program. So don't stop at the end of this. You can go to the next slide. We set and I don't take this wrong, Benton Foundation crew. When I do mission statements and vision statements, it's like, oh, really? Oh my gosh, every word means something. But he's right. He's absolutely right, because we go back to this all the time. We've used it for all of our grant writing processes. We've used it for everything that we're doing. And the next slide, you can forward, Bill, is our vision statement. This vision statement came from one of our county commissioners. And broadband access is not a luxury, it's a necessity in today's society. And we say that over and over and over again because we want water, sewer, that's a necessity. Electricity is a necessity. Well, broadband has to be as a high priority. And that was a shift for our vision for this community, because we're an agriculture and manufacturing area, and we have a little bit of tourism. So it was that broadband is as important as water and sewer, and it became that. Next slide. So when we went through the program, follow that syllabus. The syllabus really helped us to build out our understanding of broadband. And our leadership team, and Robbie from the Benton Foundation, I'm assuming he's still there, and I'm sure Bill has given you guys this already. There's Broadband 101, and learn that information. That's baby step number one, because we use that document all the time yet for preparing for our grants and applying for grants. You can fast forward to the next one. Since we finished the program, we've applied for a Appalachian Regional Commission program grant. We will know if we get that in June, July. We've received some funding from our county, from the ARPA funds, and we've interviewed and put out an RFP. The RFP will be announced the end of this month, next week actually, for some service. Then the next slide, I would tell you one of the most important things, and we still do this, is we're surveying constantly. The OSU Extension Office did a phenomenal survey for us here when we were in the accelerator program. But we've followed up and just kept it going. And our library system and has been very helpful, and our school districts too, because we continue to find out that kids have Chromebooks, they're going home, and they have no internet service. So it's really helped us to understand and put our maps together to get to the right areas in our county that needed service. Our county's really long and narrow if you look it up on the internet. And we have 11 villages and 3 cities. Population is about a little over 90,000 for the whole county. So we had serious donut holes. So the survey process was a very critical part for us when we were going through the program. And when we stopped surveying, everyone was like, we want to continue this. So we look at that data quarterly, and it's helped us to build out our grant process for funding. And we've started our initiative. A couple things that I would add: the Benton Foundation is phenomenal, but check out Connect Humanity. If you're in the Appalachian region, you can have help from them. ARC, the Appalachian Regional Commission, has a lot of resources for broadband too. And the other one is the Rural Innovation Strategy.
Oh, you came on mute there.
Can you still hear me? Sorry about that. I don't know. I stepped away from the computer. So Connect Humanity, great resource. ARC, if you're in the Appalachian Regional Commission, is another great resource. The Center for Rural Innovation is another great resource. And I'll be honest, I know your counties because I looked them up on, and you're all sitting there going, capacity, Marla, capacity. And we're a small shop here in our economic development organization. There's 3 of us full time, but we've really worked with our team, and I call it the Geek Squad. But we've have 3 of our providers, and our IT hospital director is on our committee. Our IT director of one of our school systems is on our committee, and they are the ones that are helping us mine through the data, work on the maps, put the puzzle together for where our donut holes are for service and how to really deploy the right broadband. Bill advised us after the fact to really take a hard look at fixed wireless, and we did, because we were like, well, we could put towers in our challenging topography land, but at the end of the day, is it going to have the speeds that we want? And we challenged providers with those questions, and we're getting what we want. But I think the lesson learned, and I'm going to stop talking, the lesson learned for me for the program was this industry is growing so fast that we have to somehow, thank you, think and never stop. And the technology's changing, and I'm just a silly economic developer that wears 5,000 different hats. But one of the priorities for us is broadband. The other thing on this slide that I would say is the NDIA. I signed up for their listserv and get a plethora of emails from them on a day-to-day basis. And I've learned so much from those emails. You will be inundated, I promise you, and you'll be overwhelmed, and just, stick them in a bucket and look at them when you have a chance. But there's some really great resources from the NDIA too. It's a marathon, but it's a sprint too. So you just got to continually keep grinding through the process. Do you want to have questions now, Bill, or wait till after our other presenter? I think you're still on mute.
Yeah.
I didn't even put myself on mute, so now we're going to start looking at maybe that was our co-leader there that did that to us, Marla. But good. So I think we'll wait. We'll go to Britt next, and then we'll go to questions. So that was super interesting. And quickly, could you kind of say what have you received funding for a project? Are you making physical progress?
We have, yes, $2 million is right now what we're trying to match that with some Appalachian Regional Commission funds. So we've made great progress since last summer.
Good, great, thank you. Britt, welcome. And I want to give Britt special credit because he's a community leader. He's not paid to, you could say, well, this is part of Marla's job to do that. Her board says, hey, this is a priority. You should work on this. And she says, that's great. Britt's job is getting the newspaper out. And he took on this task in Cleveland County with a couple of his buddies from around the community and built a team and really citizen-led organization. So I want to give him extra credit for that. And we're going to go through Cleveland County's presentation now. Welcome, Britt.
Yeah, you're also on mute here, Britt. I don't know what happened. There must have been a global mute or something. I didn't mean to do it if it was me.
Yeah. Oh, yep. There you go.
There you go.
Now, no longer muted. Okay. Well, thank you for having me, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity to share. And let me tell you, things have changed a lot since we wrapped up the Accelerate Arkansas program here in Cleveland County. This screen you see right here, this is our mission statement. I know that Bill said this was about developing a mission statement for each one of your action teams there. This is what we came up with Cleveland County, and it's establish a fiber optic broadband service providing a minimum of 100 meg down and up to every household and business in Cleveland County at an affordable price to enhance commerce, entrepreneurship, education, healthcare, communication, recreation, and other opportunities. Now, what's interesting about this is that as we went through we called it Accelerate Arkansas here in Arkansas, we had this program, but 100 meg seemed to be the new minimum. Well, what has changed, Bill, and if you know this or not, but Glenn Howey, which Bill hooked us up with, Glenn Howey is the director of the Arkansas State Broadband Office. They're getting ready to get all this money. I think Arkansas is in a neighborhood of about $1 billion we're supposed to get for internet infrastructure improvements. And Glenn Howey, the director of the Arkansas State Broadband Office, is making this 100 up and down the new minimum. Plus, you have to have fiber optic. In order to get the grant money, you have to provide fiber optic, and you have to have a minimum of 100 up and 100 down. So we did this before that became, the standard for the grants. And so we're pleased with that. And we also want to make sure we got every household and every business when we put together our business plan, our mission statement, because this is a twofold event. You got the household use of it, but the business is just important. We want all of Cleveland County. Our county has a population of about 8,000 people. To kind of put it in perspective, we do not have a green, yellow, red light in the county. So that gives you a good idea of how rural we are. All right. I grew up in Houston, Texas, outside of Houston. So I personally like the fact we don't have a red light, but a lot of people, it gives you a good idea of how rural we are here in Cleveland County. But we want to get this where every household with the opportunity to get fiber optic ran to their house. And it seems like it's a far-fetched dream, but according to the Arkansas State Broadband Office, it's going to be reality because that's the only thing they're really going to fund. And the reason they're doing that is this: they feel like if you have the fiber in the ground, regardless of the improvements that are coming in technology, it will still have the capacity to move the information. And so that's the reason Glenn Howey, our director at the Arkansas State Broadband Office, wants to have fiber optic in the ground for everybody. Now, one of the things that Bill asked was some of the challenges we had. This map right here is the existing FCC broadband speed map for Cleveland County. Now, the area shaded in green is, I'm going to use the word allegedly. We use that word a lot in the newspaper business. This is allegedly places that have 100 plus meg speed. Now, from the process of going through this with Bill in Accelerate Arkansas, we found out that sometimes these internet service providers will say they're getting this kind of speed when in reality it might be one person. For instance, their office might be getting it. But I can assure you this is not an accurate map at all. Now, the problem we faced in Cleveland County was if you were to pull this up looking for grant money, it shows we have it all over the county. I would say that's what? At least half the county has 100 meg speed. Now, go to the next slide. Now, this was a survey conducted by the Arkansas Broadband Office in 2020. Those red dots show the speed below below 10 meg. Now, I don't know if my house is on this or not, but I don't have 1 meg where I live. Now, in my office now, we've had fiber established here in Rising where I'm at, but at home, I do not have that. A lot of people in Cleveland County are fortunate to get, if you get 14, that would be considered one of the higher speeds from our provider going through the old copper phone lines. Now, the next slide will show you where I put the maps on top of one another, and the green area is full of red dots. And so one of the challenges we have was showing that the map that the FCC has compared to reality are two different things. Fortunately, we've had opportunity to visit with Glenn Howey, again at the Arkansas Broadband Office, and he understands this, he's seen it. And by the way, this survey was conducted by the Arkansas Broadband Office, not by us. Now, we've conducted our own survey, and it had the same results as this. If you happen to see a speed beyond 20 megs, it was from either a satellite service or some sort of special connection they had individually. But this gives you a good picture of what we were facing in Cleveland County going forward. I do want to say this, though, as soon as we started the Accelerate Arkansas program, we did receive grant money to establish fiber optic in our 2 cities we have in Cleveland County. I'm in Rising, which is a county seat. We have a population of about 1,000 people. In Kingsland, which is down the road from us about 9-10 miles, it has a population of about 300. And they got the money to put fiber optic in both of those communities. So our focus now is switching over to the county itself, the unincorporated areas of Cleveland County. Here's our strategic overview moving forward. Again, I mentioned the existing maps. We need to show the true picture of where the county is at. Second, research and best implementation strategies and projected costs to establish a county-wide fiber optic network. As Bill mentioned, we're pretty fortunate in Cleveland County. We had a small phone company that was bought out by a not much bigger phone company, and they're kind of a family-owned operation. They're from out west, Montana, Idaho, that area right there, and they have been really enthusiastic about bringing the fiber optic to the county, and that's all they're working on. They're working just strictly on fiber, not any of the kind of strategies there. But one of the issues we're going to have is how can we implement that with a very small company has limited resources. Explore what options may be available to establish it. I mentioned our internet service provider. Their name's now called Rally Networks. They've changed their name since we started this project. And now, and Bill, y'all probably mentioned this, I guess, throughout your program here. I don't know how long they are, where they're at in the process with the Accelerate program, but the electric cooperatives are a big provider for a lot of these rural areas. And I can say this, that since they had a change of leadership for our electric cooperative, all of a sudden they're kind of interested in this now. However, our internet service provider is already on the ground, has already done this, and explore the funding streams such as state and federal grants, possible revenue bonds. We're not going to discount that completely by users of the service. And finally, you're going to establish a Cleveland County Broadband Planning Committee, and that is in the process right now. Our county judge, who, by the way, was not our county judge, we had this project with the broadband. He is now our county judge. We made sure he was on here because we anticipated he would be winning that election. He is now on this broadband planning committee, and he's going to establish an official committee, perhaps at the next quorum court meeting. And this was urged by our state broadband office guy, Glenn Howe. He wanted every county to have a broadband planning committee to put together all the research needed for the grant applications.
Good, great. Thank you, Brett. That's really cool to see the progress. How are you handling that kind of, I won't say conflict, but the electric co-op versus this telephone company? Is there any thought of them working together, or?
Well, that's going to be an issue going forward with us. Frankly, the electric cooperative is kind of late to the game. The internet service provider, which you've met, Bill, you know these guys we're talking about, they really want it. And matter of fact, of course, they take the paper, even the home office for this region in Missouri. I got a phone call as soon as one of the articles came out about the electric cooperative showing up at the meeting, and they met with one another. But how that's going to work out, I do not know. I do know that our service provider, and again, I gave you kind of a picture of how rural we are. Our local manager here has already been thinking about how can we scale this out. And one of the strategies he's already come up with was establish the fiber along the major highways as one phase. Then the next phase would be going off those lateral roads, those county roads connect to the major highways. And so that's kind of the strategy they're going to take. But the electric cooperative, they are interested in it. The new director they have for our cooperative here that serves Cleveland County, all of a sudden has gotten on the boat. I mean, it wasn't like that until he came on board. Matter of fact, they were completely opposed to any sort of a broadband opportunity before he came on board. But he's a younger guy, understands the need for it, and so we're at this battle. That's going to be a battle we're going to have to face going forward. But hey, what I learned through this program is that we're lucky to have folks that are wanting to do it.
That's for sure. Sure. Marla, could you say a little bit about the, go ahead. Bedford County has a question. Bedford, you might be muted.
Okay, first, this is for the gentleman in Arkansas, and correct me, but is there not a lot of timber in that county? And
Yeah,
I think a friend of mine that's at Monticello, and he calls them, I think, pine alleys or something like that. Or, you know, It's just a tremendous amount of pine trees in that county. Is that correct?
that's correct. That's exactly right. Yes, sir.
And then how are you addressing that? Are you running fiber everywhere, or are you trying to use wireless? Or will wireless work at all, given the fact of the amount of timber and amount of destruction that you've got?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, what we're going to do, and again, this goes back to the fact that the state broadband office is going to require fiber for all of these grants moving forward. Aerial is really not an option for us. Reason being, I'll give you an example. We had an ice storm this past winter, and it took down multiple power lines. If you're running aerial in here, you'll be losing it constantly. And so even the electric cooperative, even though they have the right of way, they had the poles in place, they themselves said they prefer to run it underground. And so regardless of which direction we go, whether it's electric cooperative or whether we go with the local provider, it's going to be underground. And we do have lots of pine, but that's basically going to be the standard moving forward, is underground fiber.
Good,
Bedford
thank you.
County, I'll jump in. Our southern part of our county is not pine trees. We have a variety of fixed wireless down there, and we have a local provider that we have given some funding to reach a specific small region because of the timber industry that is in the southern part of our county. So and even though the fixed wireless doesn't get us to the speeds that we're trying to get to, because like Cleveland County in Arkansas, we're trying to get to 100. But our one of our underlying missions was everybody's got to have something. And when they have zero, I mean, we had a population of about 20,000 folks that had nothing. And I still have some really funny voice messages on my landline at the office with people that like, we don't have anything, get us something. And they have fixed wireless in that part of the county because of the trees and the mountainous terrain.
Okay, good. Thanks, Marla. And I think that was Rowan County. Bedford, did you get unmuted to share your question?
Yes, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. And Marla and Britt, could you describe a little bit of the conversation around creating your vision statement, and how did that kind of change from the beginning, when you started addressing it? Here we are in week 5 to, by the time you got towards the graduation. Go ahead, Marla.
Yeah, like Brett, the state broadband office here has that same kind of philosophy of 100. And we wanted that universal access for everyone. Since then, and we haven't changed it, that slide deck is our original vision statement and our original mission statement. But we're having the discussions now about digital equity. And we have about 8% of our population base is Guatemalan, and they don't have anything. So we're really looking at, and we don't have any place in this county that refurbishes these things, refurbishes computers. And we're trying to get an entrepreneur to stand up a business. So to Bill's point, I think you constantly have to reevaluate that mission and vision and your short-term, long-term goals. And we're kind of doing that right now.
Okay, good. And I see Ken has a question in Rowan County.
Okay, I heard it said in a couple of the presentations there about this 100 speeds. And I even think somebody mentioned that's a requirement for funding. But what I understand, IIJA, the big infrastructure plan, it's 120. It's not 100. So is that the state offices are requiring 100? Because it's not the federal money.
So the answer is yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think, so it's really that these standards drives technology choices. So when you say 100 by 100, you're generally saying fiber optics, because
Right.
A lot of the fixed wireless now can do 100 down, but less likely to be able to hit that 100 up. Now we have some providers would say, can do symmetrical gigabit fixed wireless, or a gigabit by 500. There's a lot of claims on that. I don't know that it's quite here yet. As I've said for about 20 years in my business, I never will underestimate or count out engineers on what kind of improvements they can make in their service. But I think that that trying to use that standard to force fiber is the idea that this is a generational investment, and that the fiber is really that kind of long-term asset that, now 10 gigabit symmetrical home internet service is possible over fiber networks. And so that's great that wireless is getting up to a gig, but there's still, only 10% of the capacity. People can always have that argument about, well, how much do you really need? And the answer is, in the future, we don't know what's gonna be that competitive advantage for your community, as opposed to maybe keeping up or not falling too far behind. Those are choices that you'll be making. Britt, anything more on your the
Mission
process
statement.
of coming to a consensus in your community?
Yeah. When we put this whole thing together, we actually took everything we learned through your program, and we visited with our local provider, and it's 100 up and down was what they feel like they could provide. And I do want to say this for our local provider: when you get fiber optic in, the minimum speed, the entry level package is for I believe it's 250, and I don't know what the upload was on that, but the download note was 250, and it might be about 100 on the upload there. But we wanted to make sure when we put this thing together that we were, like you already mentioned, that we're going to have the infrastructure in place is going to last for a long time. We had the capacity to get more, and that again, it's almost verbatim what the state is doing now. Because since we finished the program and Glenn Howie has released his vision for the state, he includes the 100 up and down. He also includes affordability. Matter of fact, the affordability will be a factor in who gets these grants moving forward. Now, the providers know that. They sit in the same room with us. They heard the same thing from the same guy. So when we move forward, these packages that these providers are having are going to have to be affordable. And so that's a big part of this thing. And like I said, you saw my mission statement, our mission statement, about we try to cover every aspect: commerce, entrepreneurship, recreation, household use, and really we're moving forward. They really have not had to really change our vision statement, mission statement at all, because actually the state is matching it now.
Good. Thank you for that. And that's really exciting to hear both the progress of your counties, and sounds like you still have some distance to go.
Oh yeah.
And Brett, how do you guys keep your action going?
But say again.
How do you keep your momentum?
Well, we just got there, and we just gotta keep it in front of us. And listen, I go to a school board meeting over in Woodlawn on the east side of the county, and while I'm over there, I have school board members coming up. Oh, we really don't get this internet, stuff like that. People are constantly asking about it, and our county judge, who is on our committee, and by the way, a county judge here in Arkansas is kind of like the mayor of the county. Okay, I'd explain what that is like. But anyway, he is actually yesterday sat on a broadband planning committee at the Arkansas Rural Development Conference. He was selected by Glenn Howie to sit on that. And there's just a lot of people want it. We need it. We have a new mayor here in Rising who's very progressive on making sure we have all the infrastructure in place to move the county forward. And it's a big priority for us. It just is. People want it. And of course, myself, I have it now at my office. I have fiber at my office, but I do not have it at home. And believe me, I get very frustrated at home, hoping I get 1 meg. Okay, if the wind's blowing right and everything's in perfect order, I may be able to have 1 meg. I want to be able to do the same thing at home I can do here, and that's a big part of it. And I'll be frank with you, in a county like us, we're not going to have a huge industry move in here. And one of the visions we have is making the county attractive for those people to move to a rural area, without all the hustle and bustle. They can live out in the country, but yet they can run a business from their home. That's what we're really targeting. That's what we're going to market our county as a place you can come to, have it rural lifestyle you want, but yet you're not giving up the ability to communicate and to have a business and operate a business from your home, wherever it might be in the county.
Okay, good, good. Thank you so much, Brett and Marla, for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and experience. We really appreciate it. I see Bedford has one more question.
Back again to the gentleman from Cleveland County, Arkansas. I forget your name.
It's
You mentioned
Brett.
that.
It's Brett.
Okay,
Yeah.
somebody write this down. Okay. You mentioned just a few minutes ago that you were trying to attract businesses into that county.
Yeah.
Extremely rural county, got a population of about 9,000. Is that right? Somewhere in that.
We're about 8,000 in the county.
Yeah, 8,000 in the county. Have you been able to do that? Have people moved into that county specifically because they have access to broadband? And
not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Because we don't have it out in the county. We have it in the city. And ironically, the people who haven't moved in here are from the Northwest. Oregon, Washington State had no affiliation whatsoever with the Eagles showing up.
Well, it probably looks a lot like the Northwest. So.
Oh yeah, I guess that aspect. We don't have quite the mountains they have. We don't have mountains at all. We have hills, but that's
mountains. But the other part you've got, the streams.
Exactly right. Yes, we did.
Pretty timbery up in there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I can see them doing that. So okay, good enough. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Marla.
Thank you.
Thanks
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Good luck,
all.
everybody.
Nice to see you, Bo.
Question from Monroe
Bye.
County. Oops.
Okay, go ahead. Now, last week we heard we went too long because of too many questions, but go ahead.
But it's really a comment for the lady from Ohio. I also say the NDIA is a fantastic organization. I recommend everybody get on. You can sign up for all their messages. But like you said, you do get a lot of them, but you can sift through them. The other point you had mentioned about digital equity, I would refer you to another national not-for-profit organization. It's Digitunity, DIGITUNITY.org. And their whole purpose and business is to bridge the divide on digital equity, and they service people who refurbish computers.
Oh.
And so they have a whole list of, they have 99 companies around the United States that their whole purpose in life is to refurbish computers and give them away for free.
Sweet.
Good. Well, the learning always goes both ways. So
exactly.
Good, good.
Thank you, Britt, for coming. Nice to see you.
Oh, good nice seeing you. Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate anytime we can help. Let us know, okay?
Okay, thank you, Marla.
Thanks.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye.
Great. So broadband provider interviews. We're just going to spend a couple minutes on this and go to your breakout rooms. And this is something that I encourage you to get going on. And as your teams now of, they always talk about teams forming and storming and norming to get to be an effective organization. The idea of splitting into some subgroups that maybe some folks work more on the surveys and some people work more on the provider interviews is a great way to think about getting the work done kind of in between the meetings so that you make the progress you want to make over the next now several months. So when we think about these provider interviews, some people want to go into it in a very formal fashion where they, have a big set of, questionnaires and ask about reliabilities of their networks and all kinds of technical questions. I'd encourage you to think about this primarily at the beginning is to develop these relationships with these providers so that you begin to understand whether they're a good fit for you culturally, whether they're a good fit for you technologically, whether the same thing for them. They're going to be looking at you and deciding, hey, can we really work with this group of folks So keeping this informal at the beginning, I think, is important to gather the high level information about kind of their products and services, learn about what existing plans they have, understand from them what they see as the barriers to expanding in your community, whether that's demographics or the topography or soils or trying, existing competitors, all those kind of things that they would see as a barrier to bringing their investment dollars, their time and energy and resource to your community. Again, this is kind of like attracting any other business to your county, that you want to convince them that they can be successful operating in your community. And then to agree on some next steps about information sharing and planning. Reed has emailed out the list of broadband providers that he was able to identify, and we hope to make sure provide still a complete list through the Connected Nation mapping service that they have for Tennessee. But you should have a pretty good list there that Reed has provided. We'll be inserting that list into the broadband survey. So if you identify missing companies, we'll want to make sure that you let us know about those. Both the incumbent telephone and cable companies and incumbent telephone companies are ones that have been there, kind of have their established service territories that where they're required to provide telephone service in these areas. So they're called the provider of last resort. But again, that's only around telephone service. Cable companies have franchises, usually with local units of government, to provide services. And we know that those franchise agreements, the companies have been hesitant to re-sign those agreements as of late. And so that's been kind of a strategy they have of kind of to delay and obfuscate. They just keep the same ones, they keep paying whatever they're required to pay under their existing franchise agreements. Otherwise, competitive providers with internet can really operate anywhere in a community or a state. They don't really need anyone's permission to become an internet service provider. If they want to qualify for certain programs like universal service funds, they have to become a certified provider by the FCC, but generally the unregulated business. And then identify your prospective competitive providers, both wired and wireless. Maybe they're in the county next door, or they provide some service in your county, but not throughout the county. See who's really investing in the region, have great reputations. Find out which providers have received state or federal broadband grants, because you know that they're more active, more aggressive. And using that list of providers to then say, okay, let's give appointments with them, have a little coffee or lunch, and begin that kind of interview process. I really encourage you to think of this as a funnel, decision-making funnel, where you're, as you begin to understand these providers more, to start to weed out those that you're not really interested in working with. And in the little provider guide, I know this is small, but in the document that Reed sent, there's these questions there. And so looking at, questions for existing providers, for existing and prospective providers, learning, and many times when you're having these conversations, this conversation will flow naturally. And so there won't necessarily be this more formal interview process, but these are some of the questions that you'll want answered, through this through the discussion. And so again, at this point, I'd start really informally with this conversation. And then I think Marla said that they had an RFP out for specific project developments later on. Of course, when you're going to be putting in local or state or federal funds, you want to make sure you're following all the program rules and have an element of fairness in that whole process. And so we've got the interview guide as part of a a handout that you already have in your hands, and encourage you to use that just to help you kind of as a checklist as you're going through your process. You can have a big group of folks meet with the provider, and I think it's that's one approach. Or you could just say, let's get 3 or 4 people who can maybe be more nimble in scheduling, and maybe that's a less intimidating environment for the providers. Some are going to want to say, oh, let's pull out a non-disclosure agreement on maps and so on. I always like you to be careful on that, because when you're signing those non-disclosure agreements, you're saying, well, we can't talk about this with people who aren't in the room, and you've got a whole team there that's interested, and you need to be sharing that information. So if you're signing a non-disclosure agreement, I'd encourage you to take it seriously, because that's you're committing not to disclose, and this program is a little more community oriented. So use your discretion there. You can commit verbally to keep it within your team, not to put it in the newspapers and so on, but you want to make sure that you're doing this in the right way. And so again, we've got the interview guide, your provider list, and then if you need contact information for the larger providers, we can do that. And maybe Reed and I forgot to talk to you about this, Reed, but maybe we can find out the best contacts for the biggest companies. And I'm sure you guys have that at your office. The smaller companies, it's pretty easy to go on their website, get their phone number, and make a phone call and get to the decision makers. So that's really the next step for this process. I would ask you to try and put about a 30-day timeline on making sure that you get in touch with these providers, let them know what you're doing, and let them know that you're interested in them being a part of it, and really start to knock on that task pretty hard, because you don't want to get to the end of the program and say, oh, we need to interview our providers as an action step. And I think you'll find this to be very informative and useful the earlier in the process you get this going. So put that right up there adjacent to the survey as a key task. And then finally, I want to just talk about the roadshow, where Adrienne and I will be coming to Tennessee, and hope maybe we'll have some others from the Office of Broadband joining us. But here's kind of a tentative schedule I would love to work from. And we essentially go from west to east and visit Bedford on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Roane and Monroe are not, they're obviously adjacent. Claiborne's not too far away, but so let's try and figure out, what's the best schedule, what kind of events do you want to have, and whether that's just Adrienne and I meeting with your team over lunch, taking a little tour around your county, or any kind of, you have a technology center you want to show us, or refurbishing effort, or just to help us get to know you better, for us to see your communities and your situation a little better. If you want us to meet with providers and do a little overview of this program and how we hope it works, meeting with key constituents in your community, a kind of a community broadband summit we've had in some of our previous ones. Setting the agenda is really up to you. Let's talk individually about what you hope to accomplish with this visit, and how the best way to make that happen. So that is the end of that slide presentation, and let me get back to my team screen and go from there. Any questions or comments from the communities on any of the presentations today, or the vision statement? We've got a worksheet that was Reed emailed to you. And if anyone doesn't have that, he can do that again right now if you'd want to access to that. But I'd encourage you to go through, begin that conversation first on the vision, and then secondly, hit the your survey updates of what's going on with that. We've got 2 counties that have sent us final drafts, and one that has is in a draft form, and then still waiting for a 4th one. Our friends at Heartland Ford are getting set to be able to provide that assistance. That's going well. They're on board. So as soon as we get those documents, we'll be able to respond here, hopefully by the end of the week with that. Any questions or comments? Good. So then we might as well go to the breakout rooms, and we'll all be around to visit, talk more about our visits, and but just work as long as you feel is good and productive and as schedules allow. Reed will keep the rooms open, and we'll go from there.